Infamously anti-Semitic online commentator and once Trump ally Nick Fuentes earned backlash online when he said that when his America First movement takes power, non-Christians, quote, they need to be given the death penalty. They must absolutely be annihilated when we take power. Let's take a look.
There is an occult element at the high levels of society, and specifically among the Jews. So many of the people that are perpetrating the lies and the destruction on the country, they are evildoers. They are people that worship false gods. They are people that practice magic or rituals or whatever. And more than anything, those people need to be, when we take power, they need to be given the death penalty. Straight up. And I'm far more concerned about that than I am about even non-white people or mass migration. These people that are communing with demons and engaging in this sort of witchcraft and stuff, and these people that are suppressing the name Christ and suppressing Christianity, they must be absolutely annihilated when we take power. This is God's country. This is Jesus's country. This is not the domain of atheists or devil worshippers or perfidious Jews. This is Christ's country.
Fuentes' comments followed a pastor making some statements about the day of judgment during a recent Trump rally. Let's watch.
We must not lose sight that this election is part of a spiritual battle. There are demonic forces at play. But I want to remind those who have fallen prey to the leadership of such demons, have fallen prey to the diabolic forces, and have become pawns to their schemes. Romans chapter 13, verse 1 through 4. This is the warning. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. And those who do so will bring judgment on themselves, and judgment is coming. And when Donald Trump becomes the 47th president of the United States, there will be retribution against all those who have promoted evil in this country.
I mean, I don't know that I necessarily connect these two clips. A lot of religious people believe that God, biblical truth, is the foundation of the rights we enjoy of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I mean, vague opposition to evil is, to me, different. That Nick Fuentes is specifically talking about Jewish people, non-Christian people, black people, gay people, and on and on and on. I mean, he's a wildly hateful individual operating at the margins of conversation because he espouses widely rejected views.
I mean, I think the problem is that while polite society might reject him, he was invited to have dinner with the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, at Mar-a-Lago last year. And as he's speaking of retribution for those who were opposed to his America First movement, namely the perfidious Jews, blacks, other non-white groups, the pastor that we just watched was invited to a Trump rally. He was speaking at a Trump rally, and the clip that we just watched, similarly speaking of these themes of retribution against those who obstructed Donald Trump and ostensibly the American First movement. So I don't think it's completely unreal, not that there's a direct connection between these tweets or these videos, but I do think people who are concerned about whether or not Donald Trump is prepared to lead all the people in this diverse country, a country that used to value its separation from church and state and value its creation as a haven for people who are fleeing religious extremism with a variety of religious views and a variety of ethnic, racial, and cultural backgrounds. You know, I don't I don't wonder about why someone would feel some skepticism about whether Donald Trump, given his allies, is really prepared to treat the pluralistic group of people in the United States of America equally across the board.
And that's fine. Trump, he did not specifically invite Nick Fuentes to dinner. He invited Kanye West to dinner. He said he was told it would just be Kanye. Kanye had brought Nick Fuentes, and then they put out a statement condemning Nick Fuentes for Holocaust denial. You can say that's no excuse and that he shouldn't have been dining with Kanye West anyway. It's all fine. It's different than saying, like, he specifically, with knowledge of Nick Fuentes, who he is, reached out to him and for some kind of dialogue. Nick Fuentes has been disinvited from CPAC. He's been, I mean, he harassed Ben Shapiro in the street.
Was he once invited to CPAC? Did he used to speak at CPAC? You said he was disinvited.
He was. I think he was not allowed to attend. I think he tried to sign up. You can pay to go, or you can sign up for a media badge. And I think when his name appeared on the list, they told him specifically he could not come. So this is someone. Look, I don't doubt that he has an online following. There is unfortunately a lot of there is anti-Semitism and neo-Nazism and Holocaust denial and all other forms of bigotry out there in the world for which he is a vessel, but he's not. He's not. I don't even know if giving him enough publicity to denounce him is worth it. Maybe it is. It's fine, but.
I think the concern people have is that while our attentions are focused on whether or not young progressive people chanting that Palestinians should have right on college campuses are getting hearings in the Republican House so that those students can talk about how unsafe they feel. The professors of Harvard students have their wives chasing students down the street wearing keffiyehs, telling them their clothing are terrorist garb because they feel unsafe. And you have Palestinian students being shot at the same time that the biggest single murder massacre of Jews in the United States happened at Tree of Life Synagogue, executed by a right-wing white Christian fundamentalist. There is so much real anti-Semitism that is coming out of right-wing Christian fundamentalism that is also very much aligned with the Zionist project. So many supporters of Zionism historically have been people who didn't want Jews in Europe after World War II. Just the same way that so many people who supported the Back to Africa movement in the United States wanted to ship black people to Liberia to get them out of the way. And of course, there were some people who authentically embraced that movement among black people, and there are people, Jewish people obviously who authentically embrace Zionism. But I don't think that you can look at someone like the John Hagee, who was denounced for anti-Semitic statements and for Holocaust denial, being invited to come to a pro-Israel rally that was attended by members of our Congress with absolutely no public pushback, right? And not see that there's an ongoing trend of all of the anti-Semitic extremism that exists on the right, which is the bulk of it in this country, is being ignored. And instead, the focus is on whether or not From the River to the Sea is a genocidal call.
Nick Fuentes is aligned with the anti-Israel and anti-Zionist people. He said that both Gaza and the United States are occupied by Jews. He said that October 7th was, he suggested that October 7th was kind of an inside job, or it was known by Israeli intelligence it was going to unfold, and they wanted it to happen so that they could invade Gaza, which he believes is a genocide. I don't know that you'd characterize him as on the right on these issues.
Being on the right on these issues and being personally a Zionist himself are two different
He's not
things.
Zionist. He's an anti-Zionist.
I'm saying he's very much on the right, but regardless of whether or not he personally is a Zionist. What I'm talking about is the disproportionate focus on, we just did a segment about Michelle Wu holding an event in Boston that was a Christmas party for her diverse staff members. And in the course of that conversation, you made the case that the last bastion, that the significant codified racism in the United States of America is happening on college campuses against white people and Asian people. And I would simply argue that videos like this and the popularity of figures like this is evidence that we might have some bigger fish to fry.
No, she's the mayor of a large city, and he is an obnoxious online troll, but I didn't object to talking about this. If you want to call attention to it. I think what he has to say is odious. I thought that for years. I think he should be as marginalized a figure as possible.
Yeah, I mean, my personal preference, cards on the table, would be that this story nor the Michelle Wu story is of particular significance when you have our government going around Congress to send millions of dollars worth of bombs to a country that we call our closest allies as they commit what's been described as a genocide by a group of respected humanitarian authorities on this issue, and upwards of 18,000 people, about half of whom are kids, have been killed. And there's an ongoing ethnic cleansing campaign happening with our tax dollars. But we do live in a world now where we are asking people to pick sides and be divided because somebody somewhere did something that we object to. And that's, I think, my argument would be that the bulk of the news coverage around what's going on campus colleges, whether it's CRT or SJP, is about getting the public to take their eye off the ball. So, I mean, I think it's worth having a conversation about what editorial decisions do to the broader public perception of who the enemy is and what the broader public that largely agree on a lot of these issues should be fighting for.
Well, I mean, I agree with that, but I don't think we have fallen down in our duty to address. I mean, you bring up these things. We do segments on them. We have guests on these subjects. We are covering the Israeli-Palestinian issue. We are covering violations of Palestinian people's free speech. We are doing all of that. But there's a lot to cover, and frankly, I come from a background before I did this show of reporting on campus issues. So if there's an extra emphasis or area of interest, it's only because I come to that conversation, unlike the foreign policy conversation, with some level of expertise.
It's the entire country. I mean, there was the front page of the New York Times was being circulated earlier this week, a screen grab of it on social media, largely because every single story above the fold was about campus drama, and the actual mass murder of Gazans was demoted to second place behind the concerns of an elite Harvard student's feelings of personal safety. And if we're going to talk about college stuff, I mean, above the fold wasn't even the actual college students who've been shot at and paralyzed, right? If we're going to have a hierarchy of even college students, that's not even making it above the fold. So, it's just something to think about more broadly. One of the ways to manufacture consent that Chomsky talks about are these kind of editorial decisions and what takes up space. And so that's all I'm raising. Like, me, I would prefer not to talk about Nick Fuentes. This is not a story that these kind of Republicans behaving badly stories are frankly not my preference to discuss, because I don't want to contribute to a world where we're going tit for tat. Here's what Libs of TikTok says, so I have to become a version of Libs of TikTok. I think that's ultimately very destructive. But if we do cover the Libs of TikTok story, I do feel like it's my obligation to say, yes, there's bad people on both sides.
Well, I feel that way with sometimes when you bring up examples of Palestinian speech being suppressed, which I agree with is bad and should not be. And I have to point out, well, there are, like the radar I did last week, well, there has been a lot of suppression of speech for other, including Palestinian speech, but there's been a lot of suppression of speech for other reasons, and I don't want to give people the false impression that it is only you're only threatened if you fall into this group or have this point of view. So I guess that's just a way of saying I understand, what your thinking is, but. People are getting a little bit of behind-the-scenes editorial discussions we have about what we cover on the show and how much we get to. But that does it for us for the week. Tomorrow, Jessica and Amber will be back to bring you a special Friday edition of the show.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who prefer to listen while you're on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Bye-bye.
Take care.